Okay, so I haven't done one of these for a while. It doesn't take much for me to turn my head and a week or two to get behind me without being noticed. It's October. I'm putting on the layers, but thankfully or disturbingly, it's been a very warm October. I guess global warming has some part to play in that. I've just got an enormous number of small things that I'm going to share with you. And because you're here, I assume that you're interested. And I'll wander through them. I've got some tabs as reminders of what I want to say and some props to the side, but I may well just lose my way and end up staring at you vacantly. I've been busy. Is busy the right word? I've been wasting a lot of time recently. Did my accounts and started a new thing after the library trilogy. I abandoned the attempt to reboot Jacob's Ladder, which you can find on Wattpad, and started an entirely new thing. And I was discussing imposter syndrome on Discord just now, on my Patreon Discord. It's not something I particularly suffer from because, and this is the point I was making, that if you leave it a long time between books, like maybe 10 years, it's very difficult to say, well, I wrote this thing 10 years ago and now I'm going to write something new and it's going to be just as good. Now I'm going to write the third book or the is it sixth book? But if you just put down one thing you've written and start a new one within a few months, then imposter syndrome still can exist, but it's harder for it to get a foothold in you because you say, well, I wrote this thing that I was happy with 2 months ago. There's absolutely no reason why I can't just start typing and produce something of similar quality. And the thing I've been working on is actually has a degree of humor. I would say the Red Queen's War was my, in quotes, funniest trilogy so far, and this one aims to be at that level or higher. And writing humor is something you can certainly get imposter syndrome about, because I feel much more confident at looking at something I've written and saying, is this good writing? Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I have my own opinions about good writing and they tend to line up with most of the reading public's. But humor, you look at it and you say, is this funny? That's much more personal. My sense of humor may not line up with everybody else's in quite the same way. And so there's more scope for feeling nervous about whether we've done that. But I handed the first 15,000 words to my beta reader, Agnes, and she seemed very pleased with it. So that's made me feel a bit more happy about that. Anyway, the news today is that we have a new a second SPFBO 8 finalist. So by the end of this month, the bloggers will have chosen all 10 of the finalists, and I've set up the traditional finalist scoreboard and have started populating it with the finalists as they're announced. So today it was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwood, and a few days ago it was Tethered Spirits by T.A. Hernandez, and they will be getting their fabulous finalist tokens, and there'll also be, I think we're going to award 7 of these to past finalists. Any finalist can have one any past finalists can have one if they come to Bristol Con and have it awarded. And I think there's going to be 7 of them coming to have them awarded by Mihir Wanchu from the Fantasy Book Critic. So keep your eye out for this board getting a lot more crowded in the near future. And then over the next 6 months, all of those boxes will be filled out and we will have our champion decided. So my other news, next item is just to talk about the book that wouldn't burn, which is the next book coming up in May, starting a new trilogy that is probably going to be called the Unbound Library. I did a thing on Twitter to see what titles people liked, and loads of them were suggested. And this one was well liked, and it has the words are significant for the story. And I've also come up with a blurb for it, a back cover copy, they call it officially, the stuff that I never read at all, because if I pick up a book, it's been because it's been recommended to me or because it's really popular, and I don't need to read the back in order to motivate me further. And I hate spoilers. And a lot of publishers seem to like to put basically a little précis of the book on the back, which is, innately a spoiler. I hate that. Thankfully, my publishers have always cooperated with me on the back copy, and so basically allowed me to write it and then massage it around to something that we're all happy with, because obviously copy is advertising. Essentially, you used to have copywriters. We still do have copywriters who write advertising stuff. They condense the merits of whatever they're trying to sell into a pithy phrase or paragraph, and that goes into advertisements. And 30 years ago, book companies, publishers would employ copywriters to produce, in an advertising sense, the copy that went on the back of the books, and they'd have a dedicated one. But that's because margins have shrunk and the business has become more difficult. That's now devolved to the editors themselves in conjunction with, normally, I think, the writers. And this is the copy that I came up with. We'll just scroll past some AI pictures of libraries. I watched last night a film I'd seen before, a kind of zombie flick, a low budget one, but very, very well done, called Pontypool. And the main guy in that is a radio announcer, and I was listening to his voice, and he had a magnificent voice, all full of depth and timbre and gravitas. And I'm very conscious that I don't have a voice like that. So whenever I read my stuff out, not only do I have the issues of sort of stumbling over the words sometimes and being wholly unable to act out the parts of characters, I also find my delivery very unimpressive. So you'll have to pretend that I have that sort of radio announcer voice for this, but I will do my best to read it out. A boy has lived his whole life trapped within a vast library, older than empires and larger than cities. A girl has spent hers in a tiny settlement out on the dust where nightmares stalk and no one goes. The world has never even noticed them. That's about to change. Their stories spiral around each other across worlds and time. This is a tale of truth and lies and hearts and the blurring of one into another. A journey on which knowledge erodes certainty, and on which, though the pen may be mightier than the sword, blood will be spilled and cities burned. And when I'm thinking about what good copy is, it really doesn't tell you much about the story. I don't want it to tell you much about the story at all. I want it to give you the vibe, the emotion. I want it to be in some, and this may be ego talking, but in some sense, spreading my wares in terms of prose, to have some good lines there so that the person who reads it thinks, oh, well, maybe what's inside the book will also be well written. I'm not looking to tell you this happens, then this happens, and then this happens, and fill in the final block for yourself. This post is on my blog, and there's a real library in Portugal where I have some books. And there's also includes a sort of motivational part of a motivational thing I sent to the publisher that just describes for the team there some of the background to me writing this book. And I point out there that when my parents came back from America, where my father was working in Champaign-Urbana University, my mother's first job was as a librarian in England. And they brought me back where I was born in America, and they brought me back at the age of 1. And my first memories are of being in this library where she worked. And of course, when you're a toddler of 2 or 3 years old, looking up at these shelves, everything looks enormous. And that gave me this sort of mental space that's been with me my whole life, that imagines these huge book-filled spaces, and the getting lost is very easy when you're small as well. So these labyrinthine aisles of books, which I guess is the foundation of this story. What else have I got here? Oh yeah, I just wanted to show you this. Again, it's a bit hard with my picture in the way, but I'm not sure I'm able to manipulate it very well. This was another AI picture. This one by it was Thiago Abdallah, whose book The Touch of Light is out now. He created this with prompts, just feeding them into the algorithm, into the app, which then generates pictures. But I liked this one, and I still think it's just remarkable that AI can come up with these sorts of things off just a few words of prompting. And I have now looked into how they work. There seems to be a lot of controversy and people saying that these algorithms are stealing from artists. If you look at the mechanics of them, they're really not. They are genuinely learning in the same sense that people learn when human artists look at other people's work and they get ideas and they practice things. It's a very similar thing. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be replacing human artists with AI, but I think for these small things that like just decorating my blog, they're very interesting to use. It's nice to see that Goodreads has returned to its old format. I hope it sticks, because the new format is rubbish, frankly, and has also lost a bunch of things that you could do. And when Goodreads was asked why they'd removed these things, they said, well, nobody used them, but they're so well hidden. Like here, you get recent status updates. If I clicked it for this one, you wouldn't see anything, but if it was out, then you get all the little notes people make while they're reading it. And here you get book stats, which show how many people have marked the book to read. So each time I mention it on social media, there's a sort of spike of people who then go onto Goodreads and say, oh, I'll mark this one to read. And that then becomes useful, because later on when the book comes out, I can go down a list of people who've marked, of friends, Goodreads friends of mine who've marked it to read, and I can click on them and like that, reminding them that the book's come out. That's been removed in the new Goodreads format, but it's back again. And again, hopefully it stays. What else has happened? I think I showed you my glass apple not very long ago, but this was sent to me by Sean Speakman to well, because he's a nice guy, but it was sent to all the authors for the Unbound 2 anthology of short stories. He puts out these unfettered and unbound things. This is Unbound 1, and I believe this is a picture based on his mother, Sean's mother, and Unbound 2 had an image, very nice image, and I think that one's based on his father, and it's got an apple tree over it. His father was very fond of apples, I guess, and that hence the apple. And I commend Unbound 2 to your attention because I have a story in it. It's only the 4th Jorg short story I've ever written, and it's coming out, I think, in December in Unbound 2. So basically these Jorg short stories come out on average once every 3 years, so like one per trilogy. So yes, I think it's a good story, and you should get on that if you're in any way interested in short stories. I've also got here 2 books I've been sent by people on my Patreon, and this one is The Sword of Mercy and Wrath by NC, I'm going to mess his name up here, Kousis, and just rather fatter. One is by Kian Ardalan and is the 11th cycle, and I've read through quite a bit of that on my Patreon and in its early days, so there's even a little bit of my influence in there. So you can see the difference in size there, and I don't think this one's like a short book. I just think this one is a big fatty. It's apparently inspired by the Dark Souls game. So it has that sort of vibe to it. So yeah, here's the Unbound 2 cover. You can see the apples up there. And I think the published date is completely wrong. I think it's coming in December. And I've got Bound there because Sean, who runs the Grim Oak Press that produce these books, and my previous omnibus and the special 10th anniversary editions of Prince of Thorns and King of Thorns 10th anniversaries coming up very soon. So we that's going to be out soon in the same series, and you can get your numbers matched by them and all this if you go. I'm rambling on. I have signed a contract with Sean and Grim Oak Press to do a similar omnibus for the Book of the Ancestor, which people have been asking me about for ages. So we finally got around to that. And so that'll be a nice fat thing with illustrations and signatures and maybe leather bound. I forget the details. And I've got Bound here because in the other ones we've put a story, a short story or a novella in the back, and it might be that Bound will go in the back of that or something new if I decide to write something new. But Bound's very good, I feel. And that also reminds me that the artist for the Book of the Ancestor omnibus, in the Broken Empire omnibus and the Red Queen's War omnibus, the artist for the internal art was Jason Chan, who had done the covers for the books, and he didn't do the covers for the Book of the Ancestor. They just wanted a change in style. He did excellent work, but sometimes you just a whole new thing, no obvious connection to the previous. You want a new artist to give it a new style. So the internal art for this omnibus will be done by Francesca Resta, and we can see this is something she did a few years ago for one of the art contests that I ran, and it's held here on That Thorn Guy, which is like my unofficial website that's run by Agnes. And here's a very nice picture of Nona. And I believe if I click here to my own blog, where I also collect reader art, this is another of Francesca's Red Sister inspired pieces, and again you can see the quality is obvious there. And yeah, by all means go and take a look at some of the other reader art that comes in, because there's some really nice stuff there. And again, on the That Thorn Guy page, there's reader art for all of my trilogies. What else? Yes, and talking of Agnes, who runs the That Thorn Guy site and is also my beta reader for the last 8 years or so. Under the author name Mitchell Faywood, she is producing her own book, which I've been the beta reader for. She's like beta read about 12 of my books, so doing one back seemed the least I could do, and it's coming out on the 11th of November. It's a great book. I have reviewed it on Goodreads, and the cover gives you it's an exciting, high action movie of a book, really. There's romance in it. There's sword fighting. There's sci-fi. It's a combination of many different elements that would take some skill to bring together into a package that's good to read, and that's what's happened here. And these are the 3 main characters. I commend you to go and seek it out, and I'm sure I will mention it a few more times before it hits the shops. What else? And I think I'm just going to finish up with general rambling. I've been watching Rings of Power and the Sandman, and everyone and his dog seems to have an opinion. So my opinion is, well, first of all, I'm going to preface this with my secret shame that although I count myself as a like many people do, as a bit of the Lord of the Rings nerd. My mother introduced me to it when I was 7. She read me Lord of the Rings when I was 7, and spoiler, I cried when Gandalf died. But I have never read the Silmarillion. I tried it many years ago, like 30 years ago or more, and it just felt a bit dry to me. I just didn't have the. I'm not a real reader for world building, which is why I guess some popular series just don't work for me, because I read for emotion and great characters. I like some world building, but I don't like it to be the main ingredient. And the Silmarillion, certainly when I read it all those years ago, when I started reading it, it seemed to be more of a history type thing than a story with powerful characters and strong emotions, and I was not in the mood for it, and I have never read it. And this presumably colors to some degree my opinion of Rings of Power, because I'm not thinking all the time, oh, this doesn't fit, they've done that wrong. I'm just happy to have some Lord of the Rings stuff on TV. And certainly the quality of the sets and the props and all of this, the costuming, to me feels to be totally as good as the Lord of the Rings films. The story, yeah, I'm happy with it. It's not, I've seen plot holes, and some things don't work so well, but it's got a good following win for me because I'm happy to see some Lord of the Rings fantasy on TV. And so I'll sit back and I won't complain, and I'll just enjoy it, and that's what I've been doing. Would I rather they spent the $1 billion on like $100 million fantasy conversions of books, maybe mine included? Yes, I probably would. But am I going to take a crap on this because of that? No, I've enjoyed it. And I've also seen on the social media all this sort of, I've not really seen anyone complain about the diversity of the cast, but I've seen lots of people complaining about the diversity of the cast. So maybe I'm just lucky in that my window onto social media doesn't really include these people who are, in many cases, just basically racist. I want to avoid being that white guy who says I don't see color, because obviously everybody comes to social situations with their own baggage, and they're a product of the society they grew up in and how they were raised. So I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say that having watched these 7 episodes of Rings of Power, I honestly, on the screen, do not notice the color of the actors. The elf and Lenny Henry as the Hobbit. I think they're doing great jobs, and really, I'm not noticing it at all. I'm just thinking that's good. That's a good story, and I think it's a fine piece of work so far. Apologies to those of you who hate it. There's many things I hate, and for sometimes very small reasons, which I recognize. I'm not saying your reasons are petty, but I recognize my reasons for hating some things are petty, and it's not something I'm in control of. And similarly, I've watched the Sandman series, and I'm a fan of Sandman. I have been for the last 20 years or so. This is my I've got the individual graphic novels, but this is the sort of special edition one. There's another volume as well. And again, I thought they did a great job, and the casting didn't really register with me at all. In fact, I think, I may be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that the Sandman character appears to whoever he's with as, someone who fits in with their society, both in clothes and appearance. And so the idea that this person who constantly changing their appearance depending on their audience should appear to us exactly the same as they did in these comics many decades ago, doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me. I just again enjoyed the story and enjoyed seeing something I loved brought to life and given, in some cases, a slightly different spin, but that's all good as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's me out of stuff to ramble on about. Basically, I just noticed I hadn't made a YouTube video for a long while, and thought I better do so. So I will hunt for the right button to turn everything off and say goodbye to you.